Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. Alright, everybody, and we are back with another episode. I would like to thank you all for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Evan Worley, back with another episode, like I said. Happy Tuesday, or whenever you guys are listening to this. I hope you had a great weekend. I'm currently recording this on Mamba Day. It is 8/24. Yesterday was Kobe's birthday, and you saw all the people around the league paying respects. Like you saw Bryce Harper wearing the jersey underneath his jersey. You know, you saw the entire Dodger roster. You saw them sporting Kobe jerseys during the national anthem, you know, on the field and everything like that. It was a really crazy, surreal day. Not only in sports, but just, you know, just the impact that he had outside of everything else. So just taking this this time to say, you know, another big RIP to Kobe. But on top of that, we had a pretty insane weekend in the game. You know, Jose Abreu might be the hottest player in forever. He homered 4 straight at-bats. Granted, that's happened, you know, a lot recently, but he had 7 home runs during the week. In a calendar, like, it seemed like every single at-bat, even outside those 4, he was just dropping mad taters all over the field, and they weren't like homers that, you know, just barely squeaked by. Like, we saw the Luis Robert homer where it was just an absolute missile going down the right field line. This was not like that at all. His homers, I swear, like, every homer hit this week was an absolute tank. I was discussing, I was talking about this with my buddies, and is it just me, or does it seem like homers this year are going further? I don't know if it just looks like that because there's no fans and you can actually see where the balls are landing. But, like, Jose Abreu's and Eloy Jimenez, like, their homers, I swear they were, like, maybe 10 feet from bouncing off the scoreboard in Wrigley Field. It just seems like every ball is an absolute tank. You know, you saw Machado's homers this week, and they were tanks. Like, they have to be juicing. They have to be like double juicing the balls, because we had the juice balls last year and they were not going as far as they did. Like, there's no way the balls were going as far as they did. It's absolutely insane. But back to Jose Abreu and what he did to the Cubs. You know, his last of the 4 straight at bats was against Yu Darvish, and he sent, you know, that second inning. He sent that ball in the second inning flying, and it just happened to be, you know, the only run that the White Sox would get on the whole game. But like I said, this has been done before. We've all seen it before. But Jose Abreu was the 43rd player in MLB history to go deep on 4 consecutive ABs. So it hasn't happened very often. So we saw something that was very, you know, in very rarefied air. You know, he was able to. This whole weekend, he was able to, you know, hit homers off John Lester, Jason Adam, Kyle Hendricks, like a perennial Cy Young candidate. You know, Rowan Wick, Dwayne Underwood Jr., and Darvish, who probably solidified himself this weekend as the number 1 in the Cy Young Award race in the National League. if he's not number one, it's either him or Trevor Bauer, but still, like, Yu Darvish, like, those are some names. Those are big names. And Jose Abreu was just like, they're nothing. And was just ripping tater after tater off of him. He tied the record also for the most home runs in a 3-game stretch this week. And I thought it was hilarious to find out that the record was actually owned by Shawn Green of the Dodgers. Because, when you don't think massive home run hitter, you never think Shawn Green. But there was about a 4-year stretch in the early 2000s where Shawn Green was ripping like between 30 and 50 homers a year. And he was about as skinny as a rail. Like in the middle of the whole steroid era where everybody was juicing out of their minds and they all looked like Canseco, McGuire, and Bonds. You just had this stick figure walk out there and drop 50 bombs a year for the Dodgers, and it was hilarious growing up in, just north of Los Angeles, just turning on every game and seeing Shawn Green just ripping tank after tank. It was hilarious. But, overall this week, he batted .533 with 7 homers, 15 RBIs, a 1.896 OPS, and helped the White Sox to a 6-1 record. Man, what a week. I wish I could get that hot doing anything. Not just baseball where there's just everything works. I think we all wish for that, but still, that would be... Could you imagine what kind of hot streak you would be on if just everything that you did worked for an entire week? Imagine, the lottery tickets that you would buy just trying to get rich. That would be... Oh, man, I would probably go broke. But anyways... But, he was obviously, after this week, named the American League Player of the Week. The National League Player of the Week, actually, Manny Machado. He's a 5-time Player of the Week award winner. So is Abreu. But this is the first time that Machado got it as a National Leaguer since he joined the Padres last season. He was on the Dodgers before that, but he never played well enough to get a Player of the Week award. But this week he was on absolute fire. He was batting .393 with 3 homers, 3 doubles, 9 RBIs, and a 1290 OPS, helping San Diego to go perfect throughout the week. 7-0. The Padres, man. The Padres, they're nothing to mess with. I knew that they would come around. I knew that Colorado was a pretender. I did not think that the Colorado Rockies were going to solidify themselves as a key player in this playoff spot. Granted, I do think that they will make the playoffs just because of this, the bracket going from 6 teams to 8 teams, or 5 teams, sorry, because of the 2 wild card spots. But from 5 teams to 8 teams, I do think the Colorado Rockies will make it, but I did not expect them to win the NL East or NL West, and I did not expect them to take second place. I thought they would be in the bottom tier of the wild card, which is probably what they're heading towards after they got swept by the Dodgers this week. But Manny Machado was a huge part of this weekend. He had a big week. He had the walk-off grand slam against the Rangers on Wednesday. 3 of 4 straight games with a grand slam for the Padres. We've never seen that. The Padres they got their rookie. What was his name? Cronenworth, right? Let me see. Let me check the name. Jake Cronenworth. He had a 3-homer game this weekend as well, on top of all the stuff that was going on. I mean, they were completely mashing the Houston Astros. And then, Machado hit a go-ahead 2-run homer in the bottom of the 8th inning for San Diego to take the sweep over the Astros. So, quite a season. Quite a season for the Padres so far. We're just about at the halfway point of the year, and they are riding a 7-game win streak. It does not get much better than that. Other news from this weekend, the Dodgers hit 7 home runs yesterday. 7. Kike Hernandez, one of my favorite players in the league. I cannot get enough of Kike Hernandez. He is I love the guy so much. He's so funny. He can do anything on the field. He's exactly what you want in a baseball player. He had a 3-run blast in the 4th inning, broke a tie after 4 solo shots. Corey Seager went deep. Mookie Betts went deep twice. Cody Bellinger, Will Smith, Max Muncy also went deep. And then for the Rockies, they also hit a couple tanks themselves with Trevor Story and Ryan McMahon. But it was nothing compared to what the Dodgers could put together. And the Dodgers just smashed them, completed the sweep of the Rockies, and, pushed them right back out of town. I don't know who they're playing next. I will definitely be covering that at the end of the show. But, the Dodgers are definitely not a team that you're going to want to see right now because they are riding a incredibly hot streak. They have a 733 win percentage right now and definitely are the hottest team in baseball. We saw Alec Baum yesterday in an insane Sunday Night Baseball game. He crushed his first homer of his career, 450 into the center field fountain. Not just the center field fountain, because we saw Travis d'Arnaud and Marcell Ozuna hit the center field fountain. He hit the fountain above the fountain. He went second deck fountain splash shot. 450 to dead center field. Alec Baum is the man. He is a superstar in the making. He reminds me a lot of Chris Bryant coming up. He makes a lot of great contact. And the funny thing is that was he really got it going in that Phillies game. Not only did that homer was his first in the MLB and was an insane homer, but it also helped them break their 5-game losing streak and take the win over the Atlanta Braves. So very, very significant first homer for Alec Baum. But one thing I want to talk about, and I think this has been the hot topic over the past couple weeks that I think I've kind of missed on, is just how good Bryce Harper has played this year. I haven't really paid that much attention. I've seen all the highlights of, the massive tanks that he's been hitting, but I haven't really, looked at all of his, why he's hitting all these massive tanks. Because, Bryce Harper is one of those guys. He's kind of like Mike Trout, where you go, okay, yeah, he's really good. We know he's really good. He's been in the league. The phenomenon that is Bryce Harper is kind of, faded. So you're just expecting something really good to come out of him. So when you're hearing great stories, it's like, oh, Bryce Harper's on a hot streak again. But you don't really, we're kind of in a spot where we're taking him for granted, and we should stop taking him for granted immediately because he is on fire. So let's just go back to his 2015 season because that was his unanimous MVP season. So in 2015, he had an on-base percentage of 460, slugging 649, combining for an OPS of 1.109 and an OPS plus of 198. Now remember, 100 is average for an OPS plus, and those were numbers that got him the unanimous MVP award. Now let's go to this year. He is batting he has a 471 on base percentage. That's 11 points higher than his MVP year. He's slugging 676. That is 27 points higher than his MVP season. Combining for an OPS of 1147, which is 38 points ahead of his MVP year, and an OPS plus of 209, which is 11 points higher. All superior than what he's done in 2015. Granted, it was a lot larger sample size. He played an entire season that's around 500-600 ABs, but still those are incredible numbers coming in. And there was reporting that's the third best line in baseball behind Dominic Smith and Jesse Winkler, which I haven't checked their stats, but that's amazing. He's also striking out a lot less, a ton less. Last year, Harper struck out 26% of the time, and this year, that's down to 15%. He's almost successfully cut his strikeout rate in half, which is the third largest decline of anyone who had 400 plate appearances last year, and at least 50 so far this year behind Rowdy Tellez and Juan Soto. Rowdy Tellez is definitely not a name that you would expect to drop in strikeout rate, But Juan Soto, I mean, it kind of makes sense because, I mean, he was canning a lot, and then it seemed like some switch just flicked in the playoffs, and he just became an entirely next-level player. Like, the jump from the regular season last year to what I saw in the postseason, like, Juan Soto seemed that he had aged like 5 years in the bigs. He was the most feared hitter. He was a very feared hitter, obviously, before that, but he became one, like, a player you keep your eye on to a player you should probably intentionally walk immediately. It was absolutely insane. And the reason why Bryce Harper is striking out a lot less this year is because he's doing a lot better versus breaking balls this year. So in 2019, against breaking balls, he had a batting average of 195, a 414 slugging percentage, and a 293 WOBA. And this year, in 2020, Bryce Harper is hitting 385 with a 462 slugging and a 387 WOBA against breaking balls this year. That is a significant jump. Obviously, just looking at the batting average, he practically doubled his batting average against breaking balls. He's having a lot of, he's not swinging and missing at them. It looks like he's, really just watching all the breaking balls and then just picking apart whenever he's coming. Because everybody knows the power that he has and what he can do against a fastball. But it looks like he's really caught on to, all right, I'm going to get a lot of first pitch breaking balls. And I think he's more sitting on the breaking balls now than he is the actual fastballs early in the count. And he is taking advantage, and he is killing it for the Phillies this year. The Phillies are in a weird spot also as well. They have a lot of pieces to where they know they can succeed. They just got a new coach with Joe Girardi. But there's speculations that they could sell at the deadline. They have some pieces where they can sell at the deadline. Me personally, I highly doubt that they're going to sell, mainly because they just got a couple guys at the deadline, which we'll cover in the next segment. But there has been rumblings that they're going to sell at the deadline if they don't turn it around. But, with new coach Joe Girardi, they got Alec Baum. Bryce Harper's killing it. They do have a lot of good pieces. Aaron Nola's kind of turned it around. He did have a little hiccup this week against the Braves, but, he did face Max Fried, and he's turning into one of the best pitchers in the game, so you can't really hold that against him. The Phillies, I think if they hold out for a couple more years, they're going to be maybe, I would say as early as next year. I would say as late as 2022, 2023, I think that they will either win the NL East or be like a top contender pushing like into the postseason, like probably an NLCS contender as like a wild card team, kind of like the Nationals were this year. But like that, we are done with this segment. I'm going to be taking a quick break, and we're going to be talking about the newest rumors amongst the trade deadline, who got dealt already, and who's looking to get dealt after a big weekend. I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, everybody, and we are back. So, like I said in the last segment, we were going to spend some time to talk about the recent rumors going around the trade deadline, because there were a few moves that happened yesterday that I wasn't familiar with. Not yesterday, but this weekend that I was pretty unfamiliar with when I was looking this up. So, like I said, with Philadelphia, they just traded for a couple of relievers, Brandon Workman and Heath Hembree. I know Brandon Workman was on the Boston Red Sox, but I'm not really sure who they got Heath Hembree for. Probably still the Red Sox, but I don't remember. I don't remember that guy. But another player who got dealt at the deadline that I was kind of surprised about was former Seattle designated hitter Daniel Vogelbach. He's been struggling mightily this year, and they traded him to the Toronto Blue Jays for cash considerations. Now, that also is something that I found strange because the Blue Jays, they are looking forward to contending either next year or the year after. They've had kind of a weird season this year. Once they got set up in Buffalo, though, they've had a pretty solid few weeks, I should say. After they got their house set up in Baltimore, they've had a few unsuspected injuries, like Bo Bichette, I think, is still out. They've had a couple of other guys drop, but with the acquisition of Daniel Vogelbach, it kind of, obviously he's not going to take the spot of Vladdy Jr., but I mean that's a lot of condensing the DH position, because you're going to want Vladdy Jr. in there every single day. I know they're moving him to first base to take reps at first this season. I think he's still taking reps at third base this year also, but with his transition to first base, now you have your first baseman already. I think Rowdy Tellez is still on the Blue Jays. I'm not very sure. But they have a starter at first base already. Then you have Vladdy Jr. on top of that. And you have Daniel Vogelbach on top of that. Granted, Vladdy Jr. is kind of, he's struggled at the plate recently. He's not having the best year, but I mean, it is only his second season, so you can't really hold that against him. He's having more of a traditional, come up where it's not like, oh, he's a rookie sensation in the first week. He's more of like he's learning everything and slowly but surely getting there. People forget that, David Ortiz was on the Twins before he ever made it to the Red Sox, and nobody remembers him, in Minnesota. They just remember him just cranking taters for the Boston Red Sox. So, he's having kind of a slow, come up, but, he'll get there. He's young, and I mean, his dad is a Hall of Famer. Granted, that doesn't always work with the children, but, we've seen it in him. He just needs to, just really reach in and tap that all out. But, with Vogelbach, it's kind of weird. He's had 5 base hits this year, and 2 of them have been homers. He's batting below 100 on the year, and, he's yet to play a game in the field at first base. And so he's a sole designated hitter. It looks like they could be moving expecting Vlad to take over the first base position permanently. And if it works out, it works out. If Vlad can be able to turn himself into a first baseman, and Daniel Vogelbach is able to go back to what he did last season, where, I mean, a year ago, Vogelbach's first half, he was hitting 21 homers, driving in 51 RBIs at the All-Star break. But, he made the All-Star game last year, but ever since he's made that All-Star game, he's batted 162 with 9 homers. It's really, really not looking good for Daniel Vogelbach. So, maybe he could tap into it again. Maybe. So we'll keep an eye out for that. I hope for the best, because I mean, I want the Toronto Blue Jays to be good. I think everybody wants the Toronto Blue Jays to be good at this point, to be completely honest, because I mean, with Bo Flows and, Vladdy Jr., Kevin Biggio, and all the young talent that they have up there, like, it's hard to root against them. There's something about just young teams that are vibrant and energetic that you just gravitate towards them, kind of like how the Padres are doing this year, and, the Oakland A's are kind of like that, where it's just, and the Chicago White Sox, where there's a lot of youth in the lineup and you just want to watch them all the time. It makes it a lot more fun. Moving on from that, we've got we've got an interesting development there in Cleveland. We know you can never get too much starting pitching. Starting pitching is the number one thing that's going to be wanted by everybody at the trade deadline. The Braves are looking for somebody in the rotation. The Yankees are looking for someone in the rotation. There's a lot of teams who are contending that are looking for that next starter. And, with Tristan McKenzie's, great start, who let up only 2 hits and 10 Ks, he earned himself another start. He's going on Wednesday, I think it is. No, that's okay. It's going Savale, Bieber, Plutko, and then it looks like Tristan McKenzie is going to be Thursday, actually. So with Tristan McKenzie throwing on Thursday for the Cleveland Indians, could that mean that Clevenger, could he be on the trade deadline? Or could he be on the trade block now? Could he get dealt? With the way that the Cleveland Indians are just pumping out what seems to be top-tier pitching prospects to the point where, one of their prospects 3 years ago could win the AL MVP this year. Shane Bieber is having that type of year where he could win most valuable player as a pitcher. He's having that type of year. So with that, with their ability to do that, Aaron Savale is good, Plutko is good, Plesac is really good, Carlos Carrasco is really good, and, they got Bieber and they have more prospects. Could Clevenger be on the deadline, be on the trade block? Because they are desperately in need of an outfielder. Over the last 334 plate appearances this year, their outfielders are slashing 166, 273, and 249. So with a name like Clevenger dangled out there on the trade block, you could, theoretically, the Cleveland Indians could get, probably 2 major league ready outfielders and maybe like a couple more prospects if they were to throw in a prospect of their own. They could probably package a 3-person deal, maybe even a 3-team deal if someone else wanted to come in and could, reap some benefits off of that. So who knows, man? It's looking more and more likely that the Cleveland Indians could trade Mike Clevenger and or Plesac, for that matter, for some outfield help, because they desperately need it. And the way that they're bringing up pitching prospects, like I said before, like it's insane. All the stuff that all the weapons that they have. Going back to Philly, they added Brandon Workman, they added Heath Embry, Bryce Harper's back to his 2015 form. Alec Baum is looking like a star. He's looking a lot like Chris Bryant to me. Aaron Nola's back. Zach Wheeler's having a great season. Who's going to make the deal? Who's going to make the big deal? The Phillies, it doesn't look like they're going to want to trade. It doesn't look like they're going to want to, sell, I should say. They're looking more and more every day like buyers. And, Jeff Passan, he hinted at a couple trades that could happen. He listed 2, actually. Number 1 was Kyle Seager. Kyle Seager is he's saying that he could end up in Atlanta. He reported that neither Johan Camargo nor Austin Riley is proving himself as an everyday third baseman. And, with Seager hitting 291, 377, and 315 with the 7th lowest strikeout rate amongst qualified hitters, and he's under contract for $18 million next season. Not a huge amount of money. You know what I'm saying? It's not insane. And with that, but, Atlanta, they're never going to overpay. They got Ozzie Albies 7 years, $35 million, which is criminal. That's like the closest thing to a Scottie Pippen contract you're going to see in baseball. And they got, Ronald Acuna Jr. for 10 years and $100 million last year, when easily, if he could have went to free agency, he would be 250 plus. You're talking maybe even in 300 plus for, a 10, 13 year contract. So, they got him on a mega steal. It's going to be weird. He put Kyle Seager to Atlanta. I don't know if it's going to happen. I think that they're probably going to ride out. They definitely need someone who's better defensively than Johan Camargo or Austin Riley because, granted, they struggle offensively from time to time. Austin Riley pretty much just being Troy Gloss 2.0, and Johan Camargo, who is, I like him a lot being a Braves fan, but he's definitely, he needs to pick it up on the defensive end more than anything. And then another trade piece that he put out there was Andrelton Simmons to the Toronto Blue Jays. So he also hinted that the Angels are going to be sellers, which I also don't get. I don't get why the Angels would sell. They just bought in on, not only did they just buy in on Mike Trout, they bought in on Shohei Ohtani, they bought in on Anthony Rendon. They have legitimate pieces there. They have, Joe Adell's coming up. He's been struggling recently, but I mean, it's his rookie year, so I mean, you can only imagine what kind of weird stuff he's going through with the times that we're in. They're just completely ignore their pitching over and over and over again. So the fact that they would trade their, a really good piece like Andrelton Simmons, who was one of the, if not the best defensive shortstop in baseball right now, and an all-time great defensive shortstop, you wouldn't you want to trade him to a team that is loaded pitching wise? And the Toronto Blue Jays are not known for their pitching right now. They're really not, like, no matter what it is. It's, and even then, like, Bo Bichette is their starting shortstop, and Simmons isn't a DH. Like, you're not going to get an all-time defender for DH. With Vladdy Jr. doing his thing and the trade for Daniel Vogelbach, like, why would you're not going to put Andrelton Simmons at third, and then you got Kevin Biggio. I think Kevin Biggio's the second baseman. You might move Kevin Biggio to third, move Bo Bichette to second, and leave Andrelton Simmons at short, and that would be a pretty crazy infield. But still, like, I don't know why you would do that to give up a bunch of pieces. I have no idea where that kind of came out of nowhere, but Jeff Passan, he is the baseball guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he knows a lot more than we would. I think one question that we need to discuss is, what if somebody refuses to report to a new team if he's traded? Because of all the stuff going on, like, if somebody gets traded and they go to a team that they don't want to go to, like, you can opt out of the year. Like, just think about that. Like, that's definitely something that teams are going to have to think about, pushing forward into the years. Like, what if we pay this guy and we give up some pieces and he opts out of the year? Like, what's going to happen to us? There's no insurance policy. It's not like you can have David Stern come in and be like, no, Chris Paul's not going to the Lakers. You know what I'm saying? It's weird. It's weird. I really do wonder if it's going to happen. And if it does happen, is it going to be a significant player? Is it going to be Mike Clevenger? Like, if Mike Clevenger gets traded and he's like, I don't want to play for these guys, and he just backs out and stays home, like, what would happen? Like, legitimately, what would happen out of that? And I don't think the MB or the MLB is really prepared for any of that to happen at all, actually. I think another question is, especially this year with how they had to come up with the entire year on the fly, basically, it needs to be reiterated that it is a firm deadline. You know what I'm saying? Like, August 31st is the deadline. Nothing is happening after the 31st. So it's not like, July 31st is the deadline, but, August 15th, a guy gets traded. That's just not how it goes. Like, August 31st is the last day for players to move. Players must be with an organization by September 15th to be playoff eligible. So, like, Jeff Passan put out a hypothetical where he was like, let's say a pitcher gets cut on the 13th and signs with a new team on the 16th. He can't play in the postseason. But if he signs on the 14th of October, he's good. So it's a very firm deadline. It's a firm deadline for the trades. It's a firm deadline of September 15th to be able to make the postseason. And I think my biggest concern and I think it's a concern for a lot of people, especially in the Los Angeles area, is what are the Dodgers going to do at the trade deadline? Because the Dodgers have always been players at the deadline. Like they got Manny Machado, a few years ago. They got, they got Josh Fields a few years ago in the Yordan Alvarez trade, to help them push to the postseason. But they have some big name prospects, and they have some people who they can trade. Especially with the emergence of Kike Hernandez. Like, granted, he's not, as much as I love the guy, he's not a world beater, but I think that he's a great everyday second baseman that you can play. And, when they have the number 2 overall prospect like Gavin Lux chilling in their, in their farm system, if you dangle him out and say, hey, I get that you guys are struggling. We have the number 2 prospect in baseball right now, and you sell him for, maybe a sign-in trade for a good reliever or a back end of the rotation starter. They need more of a reliever, I would say. I would say like a 7th, 8th inning guy, kind of like an Adam Ottavino. I know that not many of those guys are ever on the market, but, if they get the chance to do it, that's definitely something they need to pull a trigger on, especially with all their bullpen struggles that have happened over the past few years and Dave Roberts' consistent mishandling of the bullpen. I don't think you can ride Kenley Jansen much longer, and it's looking like Kenley Jansen's at the end of the road. So, definitely, I think the Dodgers should definitely dangle Gavin Lux out there and see what they can get for him at this moment. Alrighty, guys. That was weird little feedback. Speaking of Gavin Lux and, the trade deadlines and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with the power rankings of the rookies. You know how much I love talking about rookies. You know how much I love talking about prospects. But, I'm going to take a quick break, and we will be right back to break down the power rankings of the rookies this year. Give me one moment. I will be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, everybody, and we are back. So we are back to talk about the rookies. Now, like I said in the last segment, rookies are my favorite to talk about in sports. They're my favorite to watch because they are the future. They're young. They're a mystery. You don't know if, a rookie's going to come out and going to set the world on fire, or you don't know if they're just going to come out and, succumb to the moment and never truly be who they want to be. I think that watching rookies is the most fun, especially for me, because I want to see them succeed. And I want to see the growth. I want to know what they were like before they got to this point. Like, Shane Bieber had, he had his bumps and bruises, and now he's a Cy Young candidate. I was watching, the Angels back in 2010, 2011, where, Mike Trout would play like 5-6 games. He was batting probably in the low 200s with 5 homers, and then he came out and won Rookie of the Year and just completely took the game over and become would have been the MVP in his first year if it wasn't for, Miguel Cabrera, hitting a triple crown. So rookies are my way to go. I try and stay up on all of them, and they released a power ranking for rookies. So I just want to update you guys on how all the rookies are doing. So we're starting off with number 10 with TJ Anton, a right-handed pitcher from the Reds. He is 26, and he has become a multi-inning bullpen weapon for the Reds. They used the righty twice last week, and they had great results. He struck out 8 of the 18 batters he faced, and just gave up a pair of singles and tossed 5 scoreless innings in 2 outings. He had a pretty good. He had 2 1/3 hitless frames against the Cardinals on Sunday, and he's lowered his ERA to a 1.72 through 5 appearances. So TJ Anton is looking like a really good piece out of the bullpen. They've used him as a starter once, so who knows? He could just be a bullpen piece this year just to get him acclimated to the bigs, and then break him out as a starter, probably in a back end piece, or and slowly move him up through the ranks. But watch out for everybody for TJ Anton. He's looking like a really good piece down in Cincinnati. Moving on to number 9, you got Evan White of the Mariners. He spent 2019 in Double-A. He did not do well at all. He batted 143, he had a 210 on-base percentage and a 352 slugging. And, he had 43 strikeouts this year. He has a 43% K rate through 27 games. Why? How is he number 9 if he's batting this well or this low? That's insane. What? This is ridiculous. He just had his first multi-homer game on Monday and recorded a career-high 6 RBIs against the Rangers. So maybe he's starting to figure it out. But with numbers like that, I can't even justify him being in the top 10. That's kind of ridiculous. Moving on at number 8, we got my guy, Luis Robert. I know everybody's tired of hearing me talk about Luis Robert. He missed several games last week, and he's recovering from a minor wrist injury. But, man, he was hitting tank after tank after tank in that series against the Chicago Cubs. Like I said, earlier in the show, he hit that missile down the left field line in the first game of the series. Man, if that ball was not hit as high as it was, that ball would have just been a missile off the wall. That was one of the hardest hit balls I had seen in a very long time. Luis Robert, still my favorite player to watch. He still Ks a little bit too much. He's playing great defense. He has 7 homers. He has 15 runs scored and 17 RBIs through his first 27 games. He's batting .265, .321, and .541. He is still one of the most exciting people in baseball. I would have put him a little higher on this list, but, I'm a little bit biased. He's still my favorite. Moving on to number 7. What do you know? We have a Cleveland Indians pitcher on here. It is James Karinchak. That's an odd name. James Karinchak. He's a 24-year-old righty. He racked up 6 Ks in 3 1/3 last week. He's had 5 straight hitless appearances for Cleveland, and has not had a knock in 10 of his 13 outings this season. He is with a rookie like James Karinchak coming out of the bullpen as of right now, he will probably be a starter later in the year, or maybe next year. And then you also have, Tristan McKenzie. What are the Cleveland Indians doing different than everybody else? What are they doing? It is insane. I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. But with stuff like with pitching like this coming out of, the minor league system, it's really no excuse for their outfield to be doing so bad this year. just trade away a big name. You got the guys. You're just gonna, just refuel, recover, get right back out there. I don't get it. I would, with people like this, and Mike Clevenger causing distractions, I would trade Mike Clevenger if I was the Cleveland Indians, but, I'm not in that position. Moving on to number 6, we have Kwang Hoon Kim. Kwang? I probably butchered that name, but whatever. He's actually a 32-year-old lefty for the Cardinals, who they just signed to a 2-year, $11 million deal in December out of South Korea. So for the Cardinals, you signed him to a 2-year deal for $11 million. He's having a good season this year. He tossed 2 2/3 of 1-run ball against the Cubs on Monday. He's got a 0.93 ERA over 9 2/3 innings as a starter this year. Not, too many innings. He's not an innings eater right now, but really nobody is due to the circumstance of the league right now. And, as a 32-year-old, he's been there, done that. Granted, not in the major league level in the U.S., but, South Korea's had some pretty good talent come out of there. So, you got a pretty decent starter looking for the next couple years at least. He probably hasn't. I would say he would have like a 4-year major league career, probably bounce when he's like 36, or maybe turn into a bullpen piece. I doubt him going more towards his 40s. But then again, I haven't seen him throw. He could be kind of an anomaly in that sense. Moving on to number 5, we have the Phillies third baseman Alec Bohm. Like I said, he reminds me of Chris Bryant when he's batting. His defense has been pretty bad. He's, committed a few errors in his very first game. Granted, it's probably the jitters. But, in the 6 games last week, he batted .389. He had a .542 on-base percentage and a 6.11 slugging percentage with a double in his first career homer, which was 446 feet to center field. And, he had on Sunday night, in that night also, he went 3 for 3 against Atlanta. He's batting .344, .462, and .531 with 4 RBIs and more walks than strikeouts through his first 10 games in the majors. So the guy is a superstar. He is a star in the making. It would be great to see him as a universal DH. If the universal DH stays, I think the Phillies are absolutely set, because you could move Alec Bohm to first base and put Rhys Hoskins, because he's been kind of struggling at the first base position. Maybe it'll take some, it'll relieve him of some of the pressures of learning a new position and everything that comes along with it, and just have him as a DH, Alec Bohm go over to first base, and pick up just like a defensive third baseman or something like that along the ways, or more of like maybe they trade for Andrelton Simmons. Who knows? The Phillies could be set. I would like to see the universal DH stay, because I think that would definitely boost the Phillies to one of the, a real juggernaut in the making. Moving forward, we have number 4, which is Jesus Luzardo. I went over Jesus Luzardo last week as one of the best, prospects in the game. For his last outing, he threw 58 of his 92 pitches were strikes, and allowing only 4 hits and 2 walks. And, since he joined the rotation, he's been 2-0 in 4 starts. His ERA is at 3.67, which isn't great. But, he's fanning about, he's striking out a player an inning, which is not bad, especially for, a young guy, especially a lefty. He's out here, he's pitching great for the Oakland A's, and he's definitely a piece that, combined with Mike Friars and Frankie Montas and AJ Puck, whenever he's able to come back, the Athletics have a deep rotation, and he's also shown flashes of being able to, be used as a bullpen piece. So I like Jesus Luzardo a lot more than 4th. I probably would move him up, but as of right now, he is, pretty solidified at number 4. Number 3, is a guy we just saw. We just saw him for the first time yesterday. Tristan McKenzie of the Cleveland Indians. Hey, what do you know? The Cleveland Indians back with another prospect in the top 10, and he's a pitcher. Who would have thought? So, he was a first-round competitive balance pick in 2015 and a top 100 prospect. McKenzie pitched, he pitched pretty well when he went to AA in 2018. Last year, it looked like he was going to be coming up, but he got injured, and he suffered a back injury during spring training that wiped out, the entire season for him. So, he is a 23-year-old right-hander who is, body-wise, he looks a lot like Carl Edwards Jr. He looks, very similar. He is stick thin. Stick thin. It's going to be good to see what he's doing. He throws very, very, very fine, or very fast too. He's been pumping, he averages about 94.5 miles per hour to 96.5 miles per hour. He had a 42.3% whiff rate, including 9 strikeouts with his fastball. He is definitely someone that they can utilize and really push for at the start of towards the end of this year, kind of ride him into the postseason and get him some experience, because that team's definitely making the postseason, and use the experience of this year's postseason, really build upon it for next year and going forward. It's going to be really exciting. He is right now, with his pitching abilities, 2 hits and 10 Ks in his first start. He's pretty much on his way to being can't miss television at this point. Jake Cronenworth at number 2. He had a 3-homer game this weekend. He is definitely the favorite for the Rookie of the Year race. He had a big week. He had in the 7 games that he played last week. He hit .423. He had a 500 on base percentage and a .692 on base percentage. And like we said, the San Diego Padres went 7-0 last week, including hitting 4 grand slams last week. 4 straight games with a grand slam. I can't stress that enough. And he was the one. I think he was the one who hit a grand slam in that in that streak. I think it was, or no, that was Eric Hosmer. Eric Hosmer hit the one to break the record, and then he just happened to hit 3 homers himself. He's 26 years old. He's very versatile. Throughout the season, he's batting .347 with a .410 on-base percentage and a .623 slugging percentage in just 24 games. So he is looking like someone that you can really build upon in that dangerous Padres lineup. Man, the Padres are looking good. God, I love that team so much. And then coming in at number 1, I think everybody knows who the number 1 rookie is. It's Kyle Lewis of the Seattle Mariners. He entered the week as a Rookie of the Year favorite, and he did his part to hold on to that title. This week he batted .522. He had a .633 on base percentage and a .957 slugging percentage, and he reached base in all 7 games for the Mariners. He's a 25-year-old outfielder. He leads rookies, in hits, runs, and he homered in 2 of the 3 games during Seattle's weekend series against the Rangers. He's leading rookies in hits, runs, and then he's just hitting tank after tank. He is like I said last week, he is the only reason why you should be watching the Seattle Mariners at this point. There is no reason to watch Mariners baseball besides Kyle Lewis. If you have MLB TV, tune in every week. He is far from boring. And speaking of MLB TV, I will be right back. I will be taking my last break, and we will be going over the series that you are going to want to watch this year. So I will be right back.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
All right, everybody, and we are back to close out the show, and you know how we have to close out the show every week, or every episode, really, is, what matchups stand out for the upcoming week of baseball. So, I'm looking at the schedule right now on ESPN, and, nothing really stands out to me besides, I think, probably two of them. I think that really, you're really only going to want to watch a few of these series just strictly for matchups. Like let's go down the list on Tuesday. If you're listening to this Tuesday morning, which it should be out by then, by the nightcap, you got Luis Castillo versus Brandon Woodruff for the, Cincinnati versus Milwaukee. You got Tommy Malone of the Baltimore Orioles versus Tyler Glasnow. Surprisingly, the Baltimore Orioles haven't really faded out. That's still going to be a great matchup. You got a newcomer to the Washington Nationals, Eric Fede. Fede? I'm butchering the heck out of that name, but you know what I mean, versus Jake Arrieta, the Phillies. But I think the two series that you're really going to want to keep your eye on this week is going to be the Yankees and the Atlanta Braves. And then you're also going to want to watch the Minnesota Twins face off against the Cleveland Indians. Now the Twins and Indians are going to have Shane Bieber versus Rich Hill, and the Yankees are having Garrett Cole versus what seems to be undecided at this point. So the Yankees and the Braves did not go well. Did not go well for the Braves last time that they faced off against each other. So it's definitely something to look out for there. Let's look at Wednesday going on. Let's see. Okay, Wednesday you got some pretty good pitching matchups. You got, Aaron Nola versus Patrick Corbin. You got Masahiro Tanaka versus Max Fried. Jose Barrios versus Adam Plutko. You got John Lester versus Michael Fulmer for the Chicago Cubs and the Detroit Tigers. That's going to be a great game. Mike Fiers is facing Colby Allard. So you got Oakland versus Texas right there. Let's see. You got Taijuan Walker versus Dinelson, Lamet Dinelson. I cannot say his name. I just can't. I'm sure I have to give up at some point, but I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to keep butchering it. And, Lamet, if you ever listen to this, I'm sorry. I'm sure I'm not the first person that's, doing this. You got a lot of good pitching matchups, actually. On Wednesday, you got John Gray versus Robbie Ray, Clayton Kershaw versus Kevin Gausman. That's going to be a great pitching matchup. Let's check out Thursday's action. Okay, you got Kikuchi versus Garrett Richards, Kyle Freeland versus Zach Gallen. Let's see, let's move forward. Chris Bassett versus Jordan Lyles. That's going to be a good matchup. Randy Dobnak versus Matthew Boyd. You got Walker Buehler throwing for the Dodgers. You got Wade Miley throwing for the Cincinnati Reds. You got a lot of good pitching coming up. Hyun-Jin Ryu's throwing against Boston. They're undecided on who they're throwing that day, so and really to no one's surprise. But yeah, we have a lot of good pitchers throwing this week. I missed on Wednesday, but you got Andrew Heaney versus Lance McCullers Jr. Trevor Williams of the Pittsburgh Pirates is facing off against Dallas Keuchel. So you got those games to look forward to this week, actually. You got a throwback game, actually, on Tuesday. You got Matt Harvey versus Adam Wainwright. Marco Gonzalez of the Seattle Mariners versus Chris Paddock. I think my series that I'm definitely going to be watching, obviously besides the Yankees, Braves, and the Twins versus the Indians, is going to be the Seattle Mariners versus the San Diego Padres, just to see if the Padres are able to stay hot. Like, the Padres killed the Astros this weekend. Obviously, the Seattle Mariners are nothing close to what the Astros are like right now, but with Kyle Lewis, I just want to see how Kyle Lewis is able to do pretty much as a one-man wrecking crew versus the San Diego Padres, who have seemed to have figured out figured themselves out, like pitching-wise, in the recent games. And especially Chris Paddock on Tuesday, man. When this comes out, Marco Gonzalez versus Chris Paddock is going to be a very, very, very good matchup. Like, I know, Marco Gonzalez is in for a rough night with the way that the sticks have been going for the San Diego Padres, but, I really, really, really do want to see how Kyle Lewis does against Chris Paddock. And then, I do like the matchup of Luis Castillo versus Brandon Woodruff. Brandon Woodruff is the number 1 pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers. Luis Castillo still, has a great wipeout changeup. It's going to be amazing. I love watching Luis Castillo throw. He's insane. I try and watch him throw every single time he gets on the bump. Giolito is coming off a great start last week. See if he can move forward with that. You got Sean Manaea versus Kyle Gibson. There's a lot of good pitching. A lot of good pitching being thrown this week. And, just basically check your local listings. Check if you have MLB Network or MLB TV. That's definitely the way to go. That's what I always use. And, all right, everybody, that is going to be our show. I will be back on Friday with a brand new episode. Enjoy the week, enjoy your families, and be sure to enjoy the week slate of baseball. You can follow me on Instagram at EvanWorley23. You can play me if you're bored in tap baseball. The nickname is EvanWorley23. And once again, I would like to thank you all for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you please to subscribe to the show and write a nice review, as it helps us out. And also, if you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You guys have a great week. I will see you all on Friday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.